Hey, what's up everyone? Luke here with a brand new video. Thank you for joining in. Today we're building a Japanese-inspired house here in Mount Komorebi. So it has been a while since we built anything for this world. I think the last one was the modern family home, which I'm gonna link somewhere on the screen here. But now, without further ado, let me tell you a bit more about this particular build here. This time I wanted to do a one-pack build, so this house uses only base game and Snowy Escape, which is actually one of the best packs in the game, so if you're not sure what you want to get, Snowy Escape is certainly a good choice. Of course, only if you're interested in building things like this house here, because after all, the pack is mainly influenced by Japanese culture. So this house is pretty small, with the first floor here, which is only 6x4, and the second floor, which is only 5x4. Initially, I planned on having 2 bedrooms in here for a family of 3, but it didn't work out because I didn't have enough space upstairs, and I didn't want the house to be too cramped, so I decided to go for a single bedroom. So it's a house for 2 Sims now. And I know a lot of you guys want houses with more bedrooms because you play with bigger families, and I promise the next build will have more bedrooms because it's actually the Japanese inspired dorm. So recently I uploaded a short and you guys really seem to like this aesthetic here, which is a bit more modern than this one. And I want to build the dorm next because I think this could be fun, and since we have for rent now, it would also be functional, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't own for rent because for some reason I never got it. I wasn't too interested in the world or the objects or anything. But to my knowledge, you can split up a lot into up to 6 units, which would be perfect because we would have 6 bedrooms and some common areas. For example, I want to do a kitchen, a games room, and I also want the bathroom to be on the hallway. So basically a shared bathroom for all units. I think that could be fun, so I'm gonna build that next, especially since you guys seemed interested in that. But now finally back to the build here, because I haven't told you much about this one here. So I wanted to use different wall patterns here. I think I never used the blue greenish one here like ever, but I really like it here. I think it looks almost perfect, so I try to use things that I haven't used before more often, because I also get bored by using the same objects over and over again. I also use base game roofing here, but I wanted to use only windows and doors from Snowy Escape because I think they fit best here. This time we also have a carport, and not a garage, a carport, which will be accessible later on because it's basically a rooftop patio, or rather large balcony basically. It's basically a small rooftop garden because later on I added some planter pots here. So these plots of grass here are also very useful. They come in a lot of shapes and they're actually base game. They're great for adding some additional detail, and I think they fit the aesthetic here very well. What I associate with Japanese houses, I think I said it in my last video as well, is ACs. For some reason I think they're much more common in Japan than where I live. I think almost nobody here has an AC in their private homes. And I also think it's a nice little detail just to give it a little bit of extra realism here. So for my fence I also used debug objects here, mainly because I don't like using regular fences as fences because they basically restrict you to the grid. You can also not build them directly on the edges of the lot, which is kind of frustrating. So I tend to use debug objects more frequently. I think they look very nice here, and I think they also fit the aesthetic. So one thing I have to say here is that Snowy Escape has some of the best plants in the game here. I really like the trees, I really like the bushes, and we also get a nice variety of debug plants here, which are very usable for landscaping, especially for builds like this one here, which are supposed to look a bit more overgrown. Because those of you who watch my videos more frequently are probably aware by now that I usually tend to do very excessive landscaping. That's just my personal style. I mean, I have done some more modern builds with simpler landscaping, but this is what I prefer. I also think it fits here because I wanted to build a more suburban house with this one here, and I think this looks like you could find it on the outskirts of a major city. So as I said before, the only restriction for this build was that I was only allowed to use base game and Snowy Escape. There were no budget restrictions or anything, and I think the final build is around 36,000 simoleons, somewhere around that, maybe a bit more. So this is not really a starter home, but as I said before, it was also not the goal to build a starter home. So a major portion of the garden area here is pretty much completely unusable because it's overgrown by plants. And I also added some ponds, so we have one in the front and one in the back here. By the way, if you're interested in more builds like this one here, I have a separate playlist on the channel for just Mount Komorebi or Japanese inspired builds. So if you're interested in checking that out, I'm gonna put it in the description below, or you can simply go to my channel and look through the playlist. And if you don't own any packs, don't worry, there's also a base game playlist, which I'm also going to put in the description below. So at this point I was pretty satisfied with how the build looked, but I still wanted to add more plants here. I also planned on using a utility pole and some power lines here, because for some reason I associate power lines with Japanese architecture. And I think this is because when you watch like a documentary, a movie, or an anime, you see almost absurd amounts of like traffic signs, utility poles, power lines. And I think this is very distinctive for the picture that most people in the West have about Japanese architecture. And so I wanted to use a utility pole. Unfortunately, it's not really possible to connect it to anywhere, so I simply omitted it. And I think the build looks better without it. So as I said before, this build is only Japanese inspired, so I don't make any claims that this looks accurate. This is just my interpretation. But if there are any people here who might be qualified to judge this build in terms of authenticity, please feel free to leave a comment below. I always appreciate feedback to improve my building skills or learn something new. But I think this build fits the aesthetic of Mount Komorebi quite well, even if it's most likely not completely accurate to Japanese architecture. But after all, I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. So as you guys know, I never upload anything I'm not completely pleased with, which is also one of the reasons why I upload very inconsistently. Still working on that, still working on a schedule after like 3 years now. But a lot of you guys told me that they prefer inconsistent uploads over inconsistent builds, so I have certain standards. Usually my builds are functional and play tested, because I want you guys to be able to download these houses if you want to and use them in your game. I think that's the point for most people as well who play the game more like it's intended to be played, like with having several families as a life simulation. And that's also the reason why I usually make sure that my builds are functional. I also try to build stuff that's interesting and new, so I don't like to repeat myself because it's boring for me and it's boring for you guys. And also, if I don't think a build is good enough, I usually don't upload them. I have so many builds that are just saved to the gallery, which I might finish at some point. But what I upload is usually what I consider the quote-unquote quality stuff, and I hope you guys can see that. But enough about that for now, so back to the build. As you guys can see, we have a very nice patio here, which takes up a huge portion of our backyard. We also have the second pond here, which I was talking about earlier, and I also added a staircase here. Another ladder. I want to have a staircase to our rooftop patio here on the carport. So these planter pots here are usable, but only the front portion, because if you put them against the wall like I did here, you can't access the two slots in the back, but I would still consider them functional. I also added a telescope here, and I replaced the privacy fence and added an additional fence to our two patios here. This time I decided to go with lighter wood tones than I would usually use, because this house is pretty small, and I think with smaller builds like this one, it's especially important to utilize strategies to make them feel a bit bigger than they actually are, which I think I did only partially achieve, because the bedroom feels very cramped. You will see that in a minute. So moving on to the interior, I first started to add some lights here and then a wooden flooring. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I wanted to have 2 bedrooms at first, which was unfortunately not feasible because the second story is only 5x4 tiles, so 1 bedroom would have been like a 2x2, which is way too small. You can barely fit a bed in there and basically nothing else. And this would have been kind of unrewarding in my opinion, so I decided to go for a house for just 2 Sims and use our extra space here for like storage and stuff. So as I'm recording this, I wonder if Japanese bedrooms are actually upstairs, and if there are any standards where they're supposed to be located, or if they are supposed to be open like mine here. And to be honest, I might have to check for my next build, because this was really fun to build, and I think I'm gonna do more houses like this one here. Maybe put them all together like a small neighborhood or like a suburban street. Again, let me know in the comments below if you would be interested in that. So one thing I know for sure, and this kind of bothers me, is that you would probably not have your dining area like right in the front of the house, which unfortunately was the only place I could put it, because I wanted to have some kind of living room area as well, and the whole first floor is basically just one big open area here, not counting the bathroom to the left. But it is what it is now. I still like how the house looks, even though I think it's probably not very authentic. Again, let me know in the comments below if you're familiar with Japanese houses, but after all, we're building The Sims here, and Mount Komorebi is a fictional region, and that's also the reason why I just called this Japanese inspired. By the way, Mount Komorebi, I was like when I realized what Komorebi actually means. And I think it describes the way sunlight is filtered through leaves, or the play of sunlight through leaves basically, which is very interesting to me because I think other languages don't have a specific word for this. And I think people in Western cultures focus too much on the light and not on the connection between these two opposites. And now it's getting kind of poetic here. I'm no expert, but I just find it fascinating that there's a specific word to describe this phenomenon. Back to our build here, we have a very small kitchen, as you can see. I wanted to add some plants, so with the bonsai here. And we're also going to use a trusty cedar bar wall decoration here for some additional detail. So with these aprons here, I think I have to use a different swatch, but this is basically one that fits everything. It's neutral and very nice in general. I wish we had a single apron as well for smaller kitchens like this one here. So another thing I just realized while recording this, I didn't add a trash can here. We have one, but I used it as a custom pot for this plant here, which looks pretty nice. I also added some debug dirt to cover the original vase. So initially I wanted our dining area to be further to the back here, but I had to move it to the front, which kind of bothers me because this was the only way to place it, since I want to have some kind of living room area here as well. So as I said before, everything here is functional, even though it's a bit cluttered. I also added some additional windows to the back here because, as I said before, with smaller houses like this one, you need to make sure that it doesn't feel too small. And I initially also wanted to use furniture from Snowy Escape, but I think I overused the couch and this chair with the fur on it, so I decided to go with the base game couch. I also used it kind of odd color for it, the screen here, and I wanted to have this very old-fashioned TV here sitting on a small table, like you could move it out of the way if you needed a bit more space or if nobody is watching TV, for example. Also wanted to use this wall-mounted shelf here you see to the left, but I ended up removing it because there was basically no space and here it was blocking the staircase. So I just added some wall decorations from base game here instead. So moving on to the bathroom here, I wanted to use a very old-fashioned looking bathtub, but I couldn't find one that I really liked, and there's only one included in Snowy Escape, so I decided to use this one, which looks a bit too modern in my opinion for this particular house, but I still kept it here because I didn't want to use a shower, and I kept the bathroom very basic, so nothing too special here, nothing out of the ordinary. It's also fully functional, of course, and it's rather large in comparison to what I usually build, so I could have used this room as a second bedroom and put the bathroom upstairs, but at the time it made more sense to me to have the bathroom downstairs. So this is our bedroom area, and again, I'm not sure if open bedrooms like this one here are very common. So in case you're wondering, the bed here is fully functional because I usually get some comments of people asking if the bed is functional or some people claiming that the bed is not functional. But if you place the bed against the wall like I did here, your Sims can simply scoot over, so it's not a problem. But keep in mind that the Sim sleeping on the wall side can't get out of the bed until the first one gets up, so that's one thing to consider if you're playing with houses like this one. So if one of your Sims has to like get up before the other, you might want to consider this. So one thing I don't understand with Snowy Escape is why we didn't get any traditional Japanese sleeping arrangements, for example, the futon, so your Sims can actually sleep on the floor, which would have been a nice addition for this expansion pack. However, I understand that they would have needed completely new animations for your Sims. I'm not sure if there are sleeping bags in the game, but if they are, they could have used this animation. I also like the bed, so don't get me wrong, the bed is good. I use it a lot, so also for other builds as well, but I think it would have been nice to have something different for the people who want to have like a more authentic experience with this world. So let me know what you think about this topic in the comments below. And also, if you made it this far into the video, I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy my videos, since I always try to improve. And if you do enjoy my videos and if you watch them frequently, please consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already. So at this point, the build was almost finished. I was just trying to figure out the final arrangement for the bedroom. I also got rid of one of the windows here because it was basically blocked anyway. Also did some more cluttering here and there, not only upstairs but also downstairs, because I forgot that the kitchen counters from Snowy Escape have additional storage underneath, which I tend to forget because these counters are pretty unique. I'll use them a lot. Still, I forget to put any additional objects in the storage until the build is almost finished. And the storage is good and bad because if you want to add some additional details, some additional clutter to the build, it looks pretty cool. But if you don't want to put anything there, they look kind of empty and the build looks kind of unfinished in my opinion. So as I said before in the video, I feel like the bedroom is maybe a bit too cluttered, but I wanted to keep the dresser because I feel like it would be quite unrealistic to have no dresser at all in the house. I mean, where would you put your clothing? So I just kept it here and I think it looks alright, even though it might be a bit too cluttered. You know me, I do a lot of clutter usually. It would be a challenge for me to not clutter too much, so I might try that in a future video. So we also have some additional storage here on the wall, which I think looks alright. These are from base game and I tend to use them a lot because I like how they look and I feel like they add some nice little detail to all your builds. Also change the wall pattern upstairs and downstairs because I like the wood tone here, which matches with the rest of the build, and I also feel like the overall color of the wall is a bit warmer. So the only thing left to do was cluttering the kitchen and adding a little bit of terrain paint, not too much this time. I really like how the shelf from Snow Escape fits in here. It's almost like it was made to be used with this exhaust note here. This is actually one of my favorite shelves. It looks so unique and interesting, and it's also usable because it has so many slots. I think I also used it for my French country bedroom in like green. It looked really great in my opinion, and what I also like about it looks rustic but also modern, so it's usable for all kinds of builds. So before we showcase the final build, I want to say thank you for watching again. Please don't forget to leave a like, especially if you want to download this. It's in the gallery, my ID is in the description below if you're interested in downloading it. That's it for today. See you guys next time.